Morning, everyone. All right. Everybody's showing up. Every week, I'm kind of excited for this. Tell you the truth, I love doing this and seeing who's coming. As always, feel free to turn your camera on. Morning, Joseph. See a lot of otter pilots hopping on. I just like that. Otters are my favorite animal. All right, come on in. And some of you might have noticed that we now have this scheduled for an hour. It may not be a whole hour. Certainly check in or out as you need to. You can come in a little bit later because I do have some people sometimes that are showing up like 5 minutes before the end. The recordings will be an hour. If you're like, hey, I only got to see the first half, you'll get to punch in forward up to the second half. So it was kind of by popular demand. And it does seem that there's an awful lot going on. Lots of questions. So and I was in Texas last week where it was stupidly hot, and now I'm in the Midwest where it's stupidly hot. We had a heat advisory. It should not be in the hundreds up here, and that's what it was. Wisconsin should not be that hot, but couple days, I don't mind it because most of the time up here we're telling people we're complaining about the cold. So all right, I got a few more people hopping on. I'll give it a second. And I just want to apologize for last week, how late I sent that out. And then when I did send it out, it didn't change the title from yesterday's meeting to last week's meeting. So I know some people are like, wait, what? Did you do this Monday? It was partly because I was in Texas on one laptop, then I was on another laptop. And so I apologize that took longer than it should have. It will go out tonight before I head home. So you will get it tonight. But if you ever see it and it says yesterday's, the meetings are always Thursday. I'm not changing that. I don't even think I'll change it for 2023 into 24. It'll just, that's just when it is. So if you ever see that, that's just me. If some of you see my personal email or my personal Facebook page where I'm getting up at 6 in the morning, I am not a morning person. And anybody who watches that will go, wow, it's kind of a mess. Yeah, I am not a morning person. So it's an adjustment. So a couple more people hopping in. So today we're going to talk a little bit about Medicaid. And again, this is only for the federal exchange. If you have a state exchange, you're going to have to do whatever the state exchange says. It is, I can only do the feds. Someday, you know, maybe we will have specific ones for those state exchanges. But for right now, it's just the federal exchange, which includes Georgia for at least one more year. After that, it will be kind of its own thing, which is kind of nice because eventually that if you want to get into state exchanges, hey, so you can start with Georgia because that's coming up. But feel free to take the FFM and see how it applies to your state. Honestly, the reason I know what I know is because I am one of those people who pushes buttons, redo applications, especially when it first started and it really was the Wild Wild West. The federal exchange has not changed. There's been a couple things that have been added, but it hasn't changed. So I know we have Health Sherpa and Insura and all these other fancier enrollment platforms, but they are all connected to healthcare.gov. So I have somebody, my sister, we're trying to make a diagram, but I want you to imagine, and this is important because of the Medicaid system. Healthcare.gov is the hub. Think of it as a circle. Everything is healthcare.gov. Health Sherpa, Insura, the state systems, everything goes back to this hub. It's 1997 technology. It is so antiquated. It is not up to date. It's not smart. So the system doesn't work as good as it should. And there isn't a lot of communication. So a Health Sherpa does have, they're like high level. We got Insura, we got all these enrollment platforms that are really high level. They're more modern technology, and they have to work with 1997 technology. If you remember what the internet was like when we first came out, that's what they're working with. I remember, I think it was 3 or 4 years ago when I finally joined Health Sherpa. They actually were helping healthcare.gov. They're doing all this bridge work and patchwork to get a modern technology connected to antiquated technology. So the reason why that's important is a lot of times you want to blame Health Sherpa for things. It's not Health Sherpa. You want to blame Insura. It's not Insura. Everything that those enrollment platforms know comes from healthcare.gov, which is why you should never trust Health Sherpa's prescription list and doctor list. It has never been right, not from day one. It's not because Health Sherpa is not correct. It's because healthcare.gov is not correct. One of our carriers who I have a great relationship with, I have asked repeatedly, like, how come this is never working? And they're like, we don't know. We send healthcare.gov our list of in-network doctors. What they do with it, who knows? So you can use it, but you're kind of spinning your wheels, because if it says they're in network, maybe. If it says they're out of network, maybe. If it says a prescription's covered, that seems to be a little bit closer to accurate, but honestly, I know it's a little extra work. Go directly to the carrier's website, pull up their doctor. That's why I like being the local expert, because I don't have to pull it up as much. I just go, what's your system? What's your network, right? They go, it's this network, oh, well, I know which insurance covers this network. And the only time I really have to look up individual doctors is for specialists that are not connected. They're not part of a large network. They're kind of a standalone. And if you're in a state that has, I know Blue Cross sometimes has a narrow one, and then, this one is a little bit wider one, you might have to do that. Same with prescriptions, just go directly to the carrier. So Health Sherpa is connected to healthcare.gov. Healthcare.gov is a bit of a one-way to the states. So now you can go to healthcare.gov and enter somebody's information, and you'll see it. It'll say, hey, you qualify for Medicaid, and it sends it to the state. It does that regardless whether a state actually has an expanded Medicaid system or doesn't, because it's just this very broad general stroke of a brush for every state. It is not individualized. So if you live in Texas where there isn't a Medicaid system, they're not going to get it. State of Wisconsin, it's at 100% of federal poverty level. If it's above that, we're not a Medicaid expanded state. If you are in a Medicaid expanded state, all right, the system is just kind of throwing it out there as one decision for all the states on the exchange. You have to know your state. This is my personal story. When I first started, my husband lost his job and we were going to go on our state, and I had a part-time job and he just started. And I went on healthcare.gov back in 2013, and I entered my information, and it said, you and your husband can get insurance, but your child should go on the Medicaid system. Oh, okay. So I sat there and waited, and a month and a half later, because it was supposed to start January 1st, middle of February, I got a notice saying, your child does not qualify for Medicaid. Oh, so I went into the system, went in there, said they were denied, and it put her for March 1st. My child was without insurance for 2 months. Now, luckily, nothing happened, but it could have, right? I mean, she was just a toddler at the time. Certainly something could have happened. I had no insurance for my kid for 2 months. So I started looking into that. So in the future, I would go in there and I would just say, my kid doesn't qualify for Medicaid. And sure enough, it just said, welcome aboard, healthcare.gov, pick your plan with my child at it. I did not have to do the rigmarole of saying I was denied and doing and applying and letting it get denied and coming back, because I know how my system works. I know what my state is. If you have a state that you 100% know they're not going to qualify, say they're not qualified. You're basically manually doing what the system is going to do anyways. Now, I have enrolled people that I'm like, well, it does look like you're qualified, but let's get you on this plan. And if they do, if you submit the submission and your children and or you become it, okay, good, call me immediately. We'll just end it. And there isn't a penalty because you've got an overlap. Okay, they're not, the every state's different, but they're not going to come back and say, hey, you had marketplace and you had the state for 6 months or 6 weeks, and we're going to penalize you. It doesn't really seem to work that way. It depends on if the state is going to tell them. Now, we've talked to our state of Wisconsin, and the state says they do not. They do not send anything to the government. And there have been some people who have had double coverage. Most of them didn't know. It wasn't on purpose. Thank goodness. One couple was on for an entire year, their whole family. I'm like, and if they had been penalized, it would have been a whole year's worth of coverage that they would have had to pay back. So you have to educate your clients and say, all right, I'm going to do this so that if you are not accepted, we've got you in. But if you are accepted, call me immediately. You can't have both. I was just telling you, you can't have both. You don't want to double dip. You don't want the government, the feds and the state paying you, right? And we haven't had that much of an issue. You just kind of impress upon them, and they want to be helpful. People don't want to be doing the wrong thing most of the time, and it doesn't help them, right? If they have Medicaid, they don't need healthcare.gov insurance, no matter what state you're in. But I'm going to tell you the facts. If you say somebody is denied Medicaid, it's just the facts. Healthcare.gov does not go and check the state. They do not say, hey, we see that you said you were denied. We're going to go to the state and we're going to check to see if you're denied. It doesn't do that. It just goes, okay, welcome to healthcare.gov. Now, if you go through that and you say somebody's denied and you get to the end and it says, hey, send us proof of your insurance ending at your Medicaid system, that means they do have it. All right. The state has said, hello, this person's on the Medicaid system. So then you have to have that conversation with them going, all right, looks like you do have coverage. You need to either call the Medicaid system and cancel it. Maybe they got a job and they're making more money, or we need to take you off right now. So if at the end of the system, it says they have Medicaid coverage, they do have it. If it's saying, send us proof of that coverage ending. And sometimes it's an overlap, right? They've got that letter that says it's ending, on August 30th. Okay, you're trying to get them for September 1st. They still technically have it as of August 23rd, right? They still have it, but it is losing coverage. So you've got that letter. All right, we can submit it. So even in this Medicaid rollback system, I would, and we've got people I got somebody who called me. She's like, oh, I'm over the income threshold as of September 23rd. So I need September 1st start date. Okay, have you gotten a letter? Make them send you that letter, because then it shows, yes, they knew they had coverage. It is ending. Great. I don't have to submit it right now, though that will be coming back eventually. But then you have proof that they don't have it. If you have people who say, I absolutely do not want my children on Medicaid, again, these are the facts. If you say that they're denied Medicaid, healthcare.gov just says, come on aboard. As long as their income is over 100% of the federal poverty level. Now, in the Medicaid expanded states, it's the same thing. There's no reason for them to go on healthcare.gov if they're at 103% and they're like, I don't want to be on Medicaid. Well, it's the same thing. It's actually a benefit. There's a reason you pay those higher taxes. I will tell people there's a reason the state of Wisconsin has high taxes, because we have a great Medicaid system. If you need to use it, use it. Don't be afraid. But if they are absolutely not going to do it, and I've got some, he will not let his child go on the Medicaid system, because in his mind, that's a failure. He will not do it. And sometimes there's divorce situations in there. If a child goes on the Medicaid system, do you know what happens? Suddenly the state is involved. now maybe they've got an amicable divorce and they're like, yeah, but you take them and everything's fine. But when they go on the Medicaid system, suddenly the state's involved going, wait, why are you on Medicaid? Do you have coverage? And it can cause problems. There are reasons people don't want to be on Medicaid for whatever reason. And right now, the system allows that. I'm not promising it's going to do that forever. You know, someday healthcare.gov might actually get an updated system. Maybe. I mean, the IRS hasn't been updated in like 30 years, so they're still doing paper until real recently. So who knows when this is going to happen? But right now, that is how it works. Healthcare.gov does not check to see if you've applied and been denied. I've seen people say absolutely no, under no circumstances can you get tax credit if you are eligible for Medicaid. If you're enrolled in Medicaid, correct, you can't be in both. But if you're not eligible or just not enrolled in it, you can. If the system, if you are not sure, I don't know if I want to do this, you can have your clients call healthcare.gov and they will enroll them that way. You can even give them your NPN. Say, hey, when you call healthcare.gov, give them my NPN and my name. This is just how the system is working right now. Again, it's just facts. You take it, do with it what you want. I personally would rather have my clients' children on insurance than for them to go, they're just not going to get covered because I'm not doing Medicaid. And I see that there's a few messages on there. Jill says, great point. Love putting them on ACA, even if they qualify for Medicaid at some point in the future. Yeah, I just want to protect them. And then if they do get it, absolutely call me. Great. Medicaid is like, at least in my area, it's best freaking insurance there is. Everything's free. In our area, 99% of the doctors take them. There's a few specialists who may not. I don't, you know, I'm not opposed to using the Medicaid system when I needed it. That's what it's there for. But sometimes the Medicaid system doesn't do what it's supposed to do. If you're in Texas and you know if you put somebody's income at 12,000 and they're a single dude, they're not going to get it. So don't waste your time. Put them at 14,000, done, they get it. Don't make them go without insurance for a month while they apply and then they're denied. And then, you know, the system, remember, big giant blanket sweeping paintbrush for all states. They have not individualized it. It was attempted, and I think it'll be attempted again. We'll see what happens. Unfortunately, politics is kind of coming into place with this, both state politics and federal politics. They did try to have it individualized, that if you were in a state such as Texas or Florida, where you made less than the federal poverty level and you were denied Medicaid because they don't have it, that you could get it on the marketplace. They want to do that, but unfortunately it was also with a bunch of other things because, you know, the legislation, they never pass one bill at a time. They try and put 100, and that one was just nixed. I think it's coming, it's going to come back. But I've never, not in 10 years, and quite a few clients who made less than the federal poverty level at tax time be penalized. You don't get penalized for making less money. You're guessing a whole year in the future. Something can happen. You make 12,000. It's possible you can maybe make another 2,000. Let's get you at 14. Is it better for them to have no insurance? Because if they have no insurance and they end up in the hospital, and they usually will end up because of something big, the state's still going to pay for it. You're still going to pay for taxes. That person's not going to pay for it. It's going to end up being a write-off. Or is it better that they have insurance? Question, I completed my marketplace certification starting early August. When can I start helping enroll ACA? So it depends. Did you do the 2023 or the 2024 certification? So if you need to do enrollments for this year still, make sure you do both 23 and 24. Hopefully you did 23 first, otherwise you have to do the full thing for 2023. But if you have done 23, you can start right now. You don't have to wait. If you only did 2024 and you're not going to do 23, you really can't start until open enrollment, which is November 1st. Over what percentage, Mary Hyatt? the federal poverty level. So that federal poverty chart, there's lots of them out there. You can look up the federal poverty level of 2023 and it will show it. It's 100% of federal poverty level. They have to make at least that much to get tax credit. If they go less, they're technically Medicaid eligible. But as you know, some states don't cover. So that's what I'm talking about when I talk about the percentage. For those who make no income, should they still file taxes and claim zero? Absolutely. Somebody who gets Social Security only, they live 100% off Social Security. They don't have any taxes, still file, right? Because the government wants to know, I mean, otherwise none of us would file. We're making $700,000 and we're like, I don't make any money. So just file, even if they make nothing. I tell them, all right, you're gonna have to file to show the government that you're actually not making any money. Oh, okay. If they don't file, what will happen is that eventually the IRS is going to tell healthcare.gov, John did not file his taxes. Susie didn't file her taxes and they didn't reconcile. So we're not going to give them a tax credit until they reconcile. Now that was held on pause for a couple of years because of COVID and all the relief bill stuff, but that's coming back. So 2023, people need to file their taxes. Now, if they didn't for 21 and 22, they're kind of getting a pass. You know, I'm sure that drives the IRS nuts, but they're getting a pass. But 2023, they will have to file their income tax in order to get tax credit for 25. Because remember, we're behind, right? So they're going to get 24s, but then when they try to renew for 25, if they haven't filed, it'll just disappear. And I have seen that happen. Suddenly somebody called me and like, what, you know, my tax credit went up, and I'm like, oh, that's weird. And we tried to redo it, but the sign, it said you did not file and reconcile your taxes in the past. Okay. Found out his tax accountant disappeared and never actually filed. So he got that done really quickly. And as soon as it was filed, we went back in and adjusted his tax credit. But the IRS had to say, yes, he did it. So always have them reconcile, even if their income is zero. This recently came up in a different, in the Marketplace Mastery, or one of the groups on Facebook, where somebody's now taking care of her parents. And I've seen this where somebody's taking care of their disabled children or whatever, and they really don't have income, right? They're using the stipend, they're using maybe they live comfortably enough that the Social Security that's going towards the disabled person is enough to cover their expenses. That's fine. Have them pay you cash. You can file. I made $14,000 in cash, and or $12,000 in cash, which doesn't even, it's not even taxable. And the IRS goes, oh, okay. So there are ways around it, but if you file zero, okay, the government's going to go, oh, I guess we did not overpay. That's what they're concerned about. If you say I make 30,000 and you make 50, they overpaid. They want their money back. But if you say I made 50 and you make 14, does everyone know what happens at that time? The government doesn't keep it. They go, oh, Mr. Consumer, you overpaid. Here's your money back. So you're never, ever penalized for making less. In fact, sometimes you get the money back. Now, if you're already paying zero, you're not going to get any money back. 2024's federal poverty level, I think, just came out, so you can start looking for that. And it's based on previous year's income, so it's kind of weird. It did go up. It went up actually quite a bit. So I have my chart around here somewhere. It jumped about $1,000. So a single person was making 13,000 something. Now they need to make 14,000 something. I think I've gotten into the habit of kind of estimating like 15. You know, putting them a little bit higher so that at least one renewal, they're fine, and I don't have to adjust their income if they're always at that lower end. So the federal poverty chart for next year is out there. If you want to start using that right now, you can, but it was a big jump this year. I remember when it was 12,000 and now we're up to over 14,000. Donna says, so you put the single guy on ACA at 14,000 while they're applying for Medicaid. Medicaid denies him because he's under 65 and not disabled. He just stays there, but not you, and then stay on the Medicaid at 12,000. No, you just keep him at the 14. You don't go up there and update it, and he'll keep it. He was denied, right? So he has coverage. Then when he files and the government says, oh, you said 14, oh, you made 12. Okay, we didn't overpay. What happens the next year when you fill out, some of you have seen this, you'll be filling out the application, the renewal, and you say the person's making 14. The government goes, this seems a little lower than what you've told us in the past. And you go, yep, change of income. And they go, okay. Again, that's what the system is right now. It may change. I think eventually it's going to get smarter, but they kind of would have to require the states to do Medicaid expansion. But remember, that's what, if you remember your civics class and social studies and all that history, states' rights or Fed rights. Well, the states are really fighting for their rights. The federal government is not requiring at this point states to cover. They did during COVID. You can tell which states cared and which ones were like, get out. They're done. They're kicking them off as fast as they can, and to the detriment of their own constituents. The feds do not require that. So I'm not sure until they require that, maybe they will ever be, you're across that line, you don't get it. Oh, you are, you get it. If their income is zero, wouldn't they only qualify for Medicaid? Not in many states, not in Texas, not in South Dakota, not in Florida. There are states that literally you have to be a newborn and a pregnant woman, and that's it. It's just states. Typically, if you don't have sales tax, because sales tax is what provides the Medicaid system. And those states that don't have sales tax or have low sales tax, or income tax on sales, sorry, income tax, they have low income tax, they don't have the surplus for an expanded Medicaid. Something like 70 to 80% of all Medicaid expenses goes to nursing homes. It isn't them, those poor people. They are not the ones taking advantage of our Medicaid systems. It's nursing homes. Nursing homes, just rates go up and up and up and up. They're insanely expensive, and eventually you run out of money. So the states can either kick all those people out on the street or pay for it. So the Medicaid systems in some states is not. So you could say I make zero income and they go, good luck. My friend in South Dakota, so this is my other story, why I know I can do this, was that situation. He was a single man in South Dakota. They don't have income tax. And he had something happening. It was kind of a lawsuit. He was on a prescription that deteriorated the bones in his hips, which he found out was a side effect. And suddenly he could not work. And he was a young, healthy guy, except for that. He could not. He needed to have complete hip replacements, but he didn't have a job. He couldn't work. And the state went, oh, well. He ended up living in a shack in the backyard of somebody's house, pawning off all of his worldly possessions to survive. He certainly wasn't going to be able to get surgery. And I went, all right, I got a risky proposition for you. If I get you coverage, if I say you're gonna make 13,000 at the time, I just had to get him over 12. And you get your hips replaced, are you gonna get a job? He's like, yes, I desperately want to work. I don't want to do this. Okay, so I'm gonna get you this. I'm gonna say you're gonna make 13,000 just so I can get you on healthcare.gov and get this great insurance, right? I mean, he's in the lowest CSR. I think at that point, the max out of pocket might've been $700 or something. And I said, okay, so you go get your hips done. It's probably gonna cost you around $700 in total. You're gonna reach your max out of pocket, set up a payment plan with that hospital system, and then get a job as soon as you're able, once you get through all of that. But the possibility is you might have to pay this back at tax time. I don't know. I've never done this. I'm not sure how the system works, but I know he was in a position that he was basically screwed. I don't know what, I think he might have blown his brains out if I hadn't come up with this. He was desperate. He had already sold everything he owned. He pretty much had nothing left. So I went, okay, that's what we're doing. And that's exactly what happened. Now, it was February or March when I got him in. This was in the beginning when the open enrollment was a little bit longer. He went in, got his surgeries. It took a while, right? They because of what was happening, they couldn't do them both at the same time. And it was by the end of the year, he was finally ready to start working. He didn't have a job. He didn't heal that fast. He wasn't, and he didn't make 13. And taxes time, but he says it's worth it. I don't care if I have to pay the IRS for the next 20 years. I don't care. I'll pay it. And you know what happened? Absolutely nothing. I went, huh. He filed his taxes and the IRS went, okay. Because what is the difference between somebody who made 13,000 and 12,000 as far as the IRS is concerned? Nothing. Somebody who makes 13,000, they're already paying the entire amount. So for the IRS, 13,000 and 0 is the same. So those are my two personal stories. I did it with a friend who needed something. And I said, here's the risks. I don't know. And for him, 100% he didn't care. And since then, I've had others come. I don't make enough money, or I have too many assets for Medicaid. All right. Medicaid bases your personal value different than the feds, right? The feds is just what do you send, what is taxable? What's on your taxes? Medicaid system's like, well, do you have a 401k? Do you have property? Oh, you got someone else living with you? How much is in your savings account? So some people don't qualify for Medicaid because they have too many assets. Okay, so I put this guy in because he was like, I will not qualify for Medicaid. Okay, I put him on. Sure enough, nothing happened, at least on the IRS. Next year, he's like, yep, I'm still not going to qualify. Okay. Next year, next year, next year. 7 years in a row. He's never technically qualified. But I put him on. I say he's going to make enough. I'm guessing a whole year in advance. He's going to make enough. And then he finally got married and now he does because of her income. But 7 years in a row, he didn't. So this is just whether the system is supposed to work that way or not. It is what's happening. I'm always going to put the customer first. There is still a lot of gray area. I'm not going to, I'm not telling people, I don't come in and tell everybody, hey, let's just put your income at 14,000 and leave it at that. I mean, I'm still trying to do the way it's supposed to be set up. But remember, it was supposed to help people get affordable insurance. That's the whole point. It's just like Medicare. Those of you who sell Medicare and think it runs pretty smoothly and it's got a lot of stuff on top of it and regulations, it didn't at first. It was a guessing game too. Half the country hated it. The other half is like, this is wonderful. And now you couldn't take it away. And of course, they've regulated it and they've gotten it more narrow and figured out, which is why I do have some hope that there will be some better regulations. I think we'll have better commissions. That's going to happen. Hey, maybe we can get access to the plans before our consumers get access to the plans. There are things that are going to change. But I think for 10 years, they were like, I don't know, maybe it'll stick around. It's here. It's not going anywhere. So will all the people who had at the minimum FPL this year get kicked off their subsidy in 2024 if we don't go in and change it? It is possible. That's why I started kind of estimating a little bit higher, thinking about renewals. If they technically don't touch it, it doesn't. But what happened, I found out is, your clients go in there, which I'm asking my clients, hey, just please do me a favor. I'm going to send you a link to Health Sherpa, your renewal. All I want you to do is just double check. So they just go click, click, click. Everything looks good. Well, their income was right at 13,000 and it should have been at 14. And all of a sudden they're like, it's going to Medicaid and I know I don't qualify. So, because they didn't change their income. So if they do the application, yes, they will lose the subsidy. They won't even be eligible to enroll. It'll send them to the Medicaid system. And then you got to kind of backdate that. Oh, let me go in there, update your income. So, you can, it's why it's a little bit better to estimate a little bit higher. Don't just go right at the edge. The government doesn't care if you say 15 or 13,600. So, go a little bit more so that renewal is happening. Donna, so 12,000 is close to 14. I agree. But what if this person is unemployed or maybe only at 4,000 and denied Medicaid? It's still possible they could make 12. Still possible they can make 14. It's a whole year in advance. It's all kinds of possibilities. They might win the lottery. They might get an annuity. They might get a part-time job. It's possible that they can make 15. May not be likely, depending on situations. Still possible. Is it better for your client to possibly make 14 or absolutely not going to happen? And you've got nothing. If actual income is less than the allowed amount to qualify for the tax credit, are you saying there's no repayment? Correct. There's no repayment if you make 30,000. You say you're going to make 30 and you make 12 or 20. You get money back. You never have to pay anything back if your income is lower than what you said on the application. It just isn't. All of the agents that have done this that have done thousands of applications, it's never happened. And it can happen like legitimately, right? Somebody says, I'm going to make 50,000 and then they lose their job. Something happens. The IRS isn't holding you accountable for what you think you're going to make. They don't look at that application and go, you listed 4 things and I only see 1 thing. In fact, the application, if you remember, when you're filling out the income, there's a whole long list of things you can have. The IRS doesn't know what that list is. At tax time, they don't look at the list. They don't care what the list says. They just want to know what the dollar amount at the bottom was. Investment income is kind of my catch-all for somebody's income that they're not really sure. Where my income, or I might get capital gains, I might not, or I'm going to get Social Security, but not now, 6 months from now. You can just say investment. That's kind of my catch-all. The IRS doesn't look at that list. I think the only reason that list exists is so that when clients are doing this themselves, it makes them think of where their income's coming from. Because it would be wonderful if I, could just say, what's your estimated income for the year? And they say it's 42,777, and I just put that in. But it doesn't, right? It makes us break it down. I think it's really for the consumer, not for the IRS. The IRS isn't going to say, you said your job was, paper box, but when you filed, your job was Kohler Credit Union. Like, they just go, hey, you said your income was whatever. What is it really? That's all the IRS is looking at. I know Josh is over there talking about the expanded Medicaid states, Ohio versus Minnesota. If a person does not want their child on Medicaid and their child is 19, and should you change their age to 17? Oh, no, do not change their age. I don't know if you're talking about on the application, that would be putting the wrong birth date. No, do not. If you're talking about the estimation tool where they quote on like Health Sherpa, you can just click that they're denied Medicaid. You can just do that. We didn't used to, in order to get a correct quote to put everybody on there, you had to, on the quoting tool, had to say they were 18, but you can just click that. On the actual application, please put their birth date. Most Medicaid systems cut people off at 18. Even our state, which is pretty, covers kids pretty well. When they turn 18, they're kicked off, or at least when they turn 19. You can say they're denied Medicaid coverage. So remember, you say denied Medicaid coverage, and I usually put the month before, the system doesn't check. You said I'm that guy's hero, Shiro. Yeah, I am. I mean, we're still friends, and I'm so happy that he got his hips replaced and he could actually start working. Chanel, can we meet with clients before 11/1 to at least view plans on the marketplace for 2024? You're not going to get them. We have no idea what 2024 is until the last week in October. One year they came out October 30th. That year sucked. It was not a fun year. I had 2 days before open enrollment. Last year they were a little bit later. I think they came out instead of Monday before open enrollment, it came out Wednesday. So you can start meeting with them as soon as you want, but if you want to look at the plans, they're not around. Now, if somebody, we get people all the time, hey, I'm thinking of retiring for 2024. Can I come in and talk to you? Sure. I'm going to show you estimates of cost because they're going to be basically in this ballpark, but please don't look at the details of the plans because I don't know what those are going to be. They really, people who are thinking ahead, they just kind of want to know a ballpark, especially if they're thinking of retiring, right? They just want to know a ballpark. So you can. Now, we get lots of clients, it just happens where they need coverage starting 11/1 and they're going to renew. So those we try to schedule our last week of October. so that we can get them in for 11/1 start date and renew them for the next year. Even if we're not technically renewing them, we can look at the plans and go, okay, as soon as, November 1st comes, I'm going to go in there and renew you. If you are doing somebody in November who needs coverage for December and January, do December's 1st. Save yourself a headache, do December's 1st. Then on Sherpa, and we'll talk about this during open enrollment or the open enrollment stuff. Then on Health Sherpa, you can just hit renew and it'll keep all of the person's information. But if you do 2024 and then try and do 2023, you have to enter the information all over again as if you didn't admit it. So just save yourself a little bit of time. Rosalind, so how are we? I mean, Americans paying for those who qualify for zero plans. Yep, it's federal taxes. It's either federal or state. You're paying for it one way or the other. You're either going to pay for it at the state level or you're going to pay for it at the federal level. It is being paid for out of our taxes, but you're paying for it either way. If they have no income, but they get to go on that insurance, we're actually saving taxpayers money in the long run because they're going to go because they have coverage. They're going to go get their preventative. They're going to go when they have an ow. Something's not right. My chest kind of hurts. Maybe I should go in. I have insurance that's affordable. If they don't have insurance, they're not going to go until they have that heart attack. And now they're costing payers a whole lot more money because now they're in the hospital for 3-4 days. And now it's going on the states because the states have to pay that off. The hospitals are not writing that off for nothing. All right. Somebody's paying for it. So you can pay it, help them pay, a little bit less so that the overall health of our country is better, which will actually save us in the long run. So you're going to pay one way or the other. If their income is zero, wouldn't they only qualify for Medicaid? So we talked about that. Nope. At open enrollment, the client would not have filed taxes for 2023. For an income they will make in 2024 and not file those taxes before April of 2025. It's a best guess, and it will be our best interest to guess lower. I always tell them that is why there is not bad guess penalty or fines. It's a fair system that reconciles at the end of the year. So yep, John, they just reconcile. If the IRS says we overpaid by $10, just want our $10. They are not penalizing you for guessing your income wrong. They're not adding interest. It's not $10 plus interest. It's not $1,000 plus interest. It's what you would have already been paying. But the reverse is also true. If the IRS says you pay $10, you just get $10 back. It's an even Steven trade. There's not a penalty for over or underestimating. Now, if somebody really underestimates, right? They tell you it's 20,000 and then I don't know, they get an inheritance. They sell their house and suddenly they will go from 20,000 to 120. It's still only 8.5% of their income. Yep, you're going to pay that back at tax time. But it's only 8.5%. I kind of run those quick quotes and I show them this is what you should have been paying. So times 12, this is what you'll pay back at tax time. It's not a penalty. Now, if they're caught off guard, it kind of feels like a penalty because it's all at once. And there's still, unfortunately, a lot of accountants who will call it that. It's not a penalty. The penalty disappeared. There's no penalty. It's what you would have already paid. And it's the government. They're going to want their money back, right? So a person is unemployed with no income and says they will get a job and plans to make 14,000, but they never land a job. Their risk now is paying back subsidy. No, I just said that. They're not going to pay it back. Does it ever come back to me? Nope. There is no penalty for making too less. You do not pay that tax credit back. You don't, even in the Medicaid systems, they find out somebody was making too much money for the last 6 months. They just go, all right, you're done. As of right now, we're cutting you off. Now, if you've committed fraud with the state, like you did everything you could and you completely lied on your application and you hid your money, they might. But this is, how do you lie about a whole year in advance? You have no idea what's going to happen. Somebody could be working at their job for 30 years every day on time and suddenly they lose their job. It's all a guess. It's an, educated guess. It's a complete guess in the future. If this tax credit was working the way it should, the way all tax credits work, we would be waiting until tax time to get this tax credit back. And then everything would be even Steven. So that would be everybody's paying full price. No CSRs, right? Everybody's paying full price, $1,000. I'm just going to use easy numbers, $1,000 a month. And then at tax time, you would file, and the government would say, okay, your income was 20,000 and you were paying 1,000 and should have only been paying 100. So here's all your money back at tax as a tax return, which would be brilliant, right? Talk about an awesome tax return. But who can afford that? Not too many. I do have an accountant who tries to convince her clients to do that, to take no tax credit or just take $1 of tax credit. And then when they get that large check at the end of the year, because they did qualify, put it in a savings account and then just use that to pay for their their monthly premiums, and then just kind of cycle. But not too many people can afford that. If it was done the way normal tax credits, I often use the tax credits that we apply to our health insurance as the same as a child tax credit, because everybody understands child tax credits. What if you could tell the IRS, in the future, I'm going to have 2 children, and I don't want to wait till they're already born. I'd like to have the money now so that I can buy cribs and, you know, all this stuff. Well, then when you file, they would go, you only have 1 kid. You owe us money back. Oh, wait, you had 3 kids. You thought you were having twins, you had triplets. All right, here's that extra tax credit back. So it's kind of, it's the same thing. It's just we're doing it ahead of time. It's the best they could do so that it could be affordable. If we have clients that are happy with their plan now, do we still need to meet with them during open enrollment, or they roll over next year? I actually talked about that. Is that last year? Nope. August 23rd. So look at my YouTube channel. I talk about that. You don't want to let them renew. You don't want them to just roll over. You want them to go in, update their information, get correct tax credits, make sure their income's correct. And a lot of times their plans change. So no, you don't want to just leave it. There are always some who do, and I still reach out to them. You're good? All right. Are you okay with me just running through your application to make sure you're getting the right tax credit? Because they don't want to have to pay back, and sometimes they will. Does unemployed person qualify for the low income of 150? So the 150% of federal poverty level SEP, special enrollment period, is still active. And again, who knows how long that will go. It says if somebody's estimated household income for the year is going to be at 150 or below of the federal poverty level, they are able to enroll in a plan. It's not about being unemployed. That was only the first year of COVID, when everybody lost their jobs. All you had to do was say you were going to collect unemployment and everybody qualified. So it's not about if you're unemployed, it's what your household income is for the year. So if your household income is below 150, yes. But that SEP doesn't always work correctly. So just so you know, you usually have to say they lost coverage to get it to work correctly. The system isn't asking right now. You know, you asked me to explain, Donna said, explain the 8.5%, please. That is the estimated, the government, how they come up with that tax credit for each individual person is based on the second cheapest silver plan in your county for your situation. So your family size, your income size, you know, ages. They make that, they add as much tax credit as needed to make that second cheapest silver plan roughly 8.5% of your income. It used to be 10%, which is a whole lot easier math for me, but they changed it, Biden during the whole thing, changed it to 8.5 when they also got rid of the income cliff of the 400% of federal poverty level. So I like to tell people percentages. Because somebody will come and they'll complain, they'll be like, oh man, I have to pay $200 a month for my insurance, man, 200 is so a lot. And I'm like, yeah, but that's less than 8 cents per dollar that you make. And they go, what? Because they're in a bronze plan. So it's even less than 8%. And they go, oh, 8%. So that's like 8 cents. Oh, I guess that's not so bad. Right? I try to put it back to percentages because their percentage, they're paying 8.5. Now, if they're in a gold plan, they may be paying more. There are some silver plans, but that's where the calculation comes, is 8.5. That and the cliff of 400% are supposed to disappear, or the cliff come back in 2025. We will see. You are going to tell people, you are going to get people that are going to ask about that. Hey, is that cliff coming back? Do I still have to worry about my income? I was talking to a financial advisor last week or this week, that was kind of, hey, is that coming back? I don't really know. We still have the president and the group that's in there right now through the end of the year. So open enrollment of 2025. I don't know. I suspect it's going to stay as is. It's now become an entitlement. If they put that cliff back, we're talking millions of people that are just over by $1,000, $5,000, $10,000. I mean, they're going to screw millions of people. So I don't know that it's going to come back, but anything's possible. So what I tell my people is, well, I don't know what's going to happen in 2025. I'm going to get you 24, and then I'm keeping track of the legislation, and then I will have answers for you. If it does come back, we will work on a solution. That's why you want to work with a broker. That's why you want to work with me, right? I need to keep track of it. You ignore all the federal news. Just ignore all of it. Listen to me. You might be hearing something that's horrible in some other state, and it's not even our state. Right now, I see everybody going, rates are going up, rates are going up, oh, rates are going up. Do you know what that means? It just means more people will get tax credit. That's all that means. And those who are getting tax credit, it's not going to affect them. Their rates are going to be probably the same. But it causes anxiety. People are upset. They're going to call, and then you're going to go, no. Please ignore all the federal news. It's my job as your agent to keep track of that and to tell you what you need to know, what you don't need to know. We will go over more during open enrollment renewals and how to update your people. In fact, I will tell you, we're getting close to the top of the hour. If there's any other questions, put them in there. But next week, we're going to talk about protection for those with pre-existing conditions. So we're going to look at some guaranteed layers of protection. There are some out there from different companies. I'm going to talk to about 3 of them just because of the time. United Healthcare, Allstate, and a new one that I'm kind of excited to show you. That's kind of a really awesome gap plan. So I'm going to show you those to help protect your people who wouldn't qualify through the underwriting process of a critical illness or a gap policy or an accident or whatever. I'm going to show you those options out there. And then in September, so I had a few people ask, I think Jill was the first one, said September 7th, I'm going to show you my process for an appointment from beginning to end. So you all get to pretend to be my Zoom client. I'm just going to pretend, and I'm going to walk you through what an appointment looks like. Now, it's just my way of doing it. Tweak it, make your own. Just, I want you to have ideas to think about. So that's September 7th. 14th, why educating your client is vital, particularly if you're going to be an independent person and you want to do renewals correctly. So this, I mean, if you don't educate, you're going to set yourself up for failure and loss of agent or clients. This is going to set you up for success. We're going to talk about reaching out to your current clients now, what to tell them in September, and then renewals. We'll start on September 28th, talking about the renewal process, what I do, some of the best practices, things we've discovered with our own staff to make things more efficient. And then in October, we'll be dealing really with like kind of what is happening. You got a call today. I see you got a question. Got a call today from a client who wants me to go in and increase her income because she's worried about her taxes next year. So first say, this is the income you've told me, you know, this is what's on the application, and then run a quote at what the new income is. If she, and you know, is she just doing it because she's afraid, or is that she actually going to make it and say, all right, let's just say somebody said 20,000 and they, put it to 30. I see that with self-employed people, or, you know, that kind of can happen. So run a quote at the new income amount and say, well, if I update your income, your rate changes from, again, just numbers, from $15 a month to $75 a month. Would you like me to change that now? Or otherwise, you're just going to pay $25 times 12. You're going to have to pay $300 at tax time. Give them that option. And then they go, oh, it's only 300 bucks. Okay. I can do 300. Sometimes it's less. Sometimes there's absolutely no, you know, I said the people who are really low income, they're the ones who call me panicking. Oh, I made $20. And I'm like, it's okay. You're making 14 at zero. It's still going to be 14 up to like 17,000. It's okay. Run that quote, tell them this is what it will be. And if they say, yes, I'd rather pay $75 now. No, there's only 4 months left. So they're still going to have to owe some money back. You go in, update their income by $1. You don't want to change them out of their plan that they're in. You don't want to change them from one CSR to maybe no CSR. Just update it by $1. Go through, reselect the plan, and then it'll say, do you want to use all the tax credit? You say no. And now put the correct amount. Remember that quote you did? And it says they should have $400 of tax credit instead of maybe they have $350 right now, or reverse. they had 400 and now they should only get 350. It says, do you want to take all the tax credits? Nope. Unclick that, say I only want to take 350, and then they're paying the right amount. And then you still keep them in their plan and they're just going to pay the correct amount for the rest of the year. It is the in-pocket plan, Brian. It's one of the new ones. And there's a couple others coming out. So we're going to talk about those. But
no, you're so much better.
It's still an option. So we're going to see what that is. It's something for people. So if they can't qualify for underwriting, and they
it's a GI option. You're right. I was just looking at that plan and I'm like, damn, I wish I came up with this idea. Like it prints money. So
it does. But anyway. It's made for those who don't qualify for underwriting, right? If they qualify for underwriting, they can get a critical illness, they can get GAP less expensive. But if they had cancer in the last 3 years, they're not going to get it. So that's why I want to talk about it. It's a guarantee, and when to use it, when not. So
that's good. They just did a big push, and so I was like, oh no, maybe Chris is thinking that. Yeah. So all right.
Yeah,
thanks.
I'm not pushing it. I just want you to know the options out there. And I think if too many people put in a bunch of 6 people, who knows if it'll disappear. We'll see what happens, but it is an option for those. Well, thank you very much. We're kind of right at the top of the hour, and I have another Zoom in 4 minutes. I will be sending this out today. Any questions, shoot me an email back and we'll go from there. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks, Brian. If you want to email me that question that you're asking about the husband and the genetic hearing loss and all that stuff, send me that information in email. Please include their zip code and their ages of him and their income, and I can just run a quick thing and we can talk, because that's a very individualized thing. Thanks, everyone.